Alrighty, guys, good morning. Oh my god. Happy fucking Thursday, guys. Hope you guys are a wonderful morning so far, guys. Tonight we're going to be doing, actually we're going to be doing the podcast here, which we haven't done. Also didn't stream yesterday, guys. A lot of really weird fucking shit going on the last couple days. Well, last week. Lots of weird shit in general, guys. Absolutely crazy. I'm going to be doing a podcast here. It just keeps getting weirder, to be perfectly honest. 25 is already one of the weirdest years in a while, to be perfectly honest. There's just so much just random shit going on, and it's putting aside politics, too, where you have fucking the left is just fucking cray-cray as shit now. They're like firebombing Teslas. Like, why? Dude, it's like someone's car. You have like a mom driving a Tesla and they firebomb that shit. I don't fucking understand it. Like, it is completely, absolutely bonkers. A lot of hive mind mentality shit where they're just like doing, like, the weird thing about this whole thing, guys, the weird thing is, back in like a year ago, I remember reading this and I was like, yeah, maybe that's actually true, where the left was talking about if the right lost, they would cause violence, right? Like, just all sorts of bad things. And they didn't, because a lot of, you can't make it, like, the last election was a fucking clown show. The left literally threw the election. They didn't, the right didn't win, the left just didn't want to win. As it turns out, they didn't care. I'm gonna try going live on TikTok in the news section. I don't know if this is actually a good idea. We'll see. Can't unless I show a camera source, but because I use OBS, it doesn't show up properly. Yeah. Problem with TikTok. Yeah, I can go under a different section. Chat or interview. News, maybe? Or be chat. Chat? What the fuck is chat? Lots of really, really weird shit going on, guys. Your game. Yeah, I don't know. Like, it just keeps getting weirder and weirder. And well, as it turns out, the left basically did that. They just went off the complete rails. They just, yeah. Tolerance and acceptance, guys. That's all we want. And then they just start firebombing Teslas because they lost. And then you hear about this weird shit in, like, in Congress right now, too, where, like, they're protesting stuff that the Republicans are doing just by basically completely disrupting the ability for Congress to function. Like, not even like a, filibuster? That's the word I was looking for. Not even like a filibuster. They just decide to just start singing in the middle of Congress and no one can talk. Just, yeah, I don't understand any of this. This is really weird shit. Lots, and that's just like some of the politics stuff that's happening right now, which is on top, which would be weird in general. But that's on top of the other stuff where they have the JFK assassination files released. If you guys didn't hear about that, I'm pretty sure everyone. Well, actually, I don't know. There's definitely some people that didn't hear about that. There's like 60,000 and more documents going up because they're scanning all the stuff in right now. Yeah, like 62,000 plus files, pages, which is absolutely fucking insane. But then at the same time, they also had the Epstein release, but the Epstein release wasn't even a full release. They released part of it, which it seems like now they're actually going through and redacting the other part of it. Yeah, so like they had a JFK release, which arguably is maybe less impactful than the Epstein release is, because the Epstein release actually includes some like people that are actually still around today that would actually maybe suffer because of it, or not suffer, suffer the consequences of it. So, like, if the criminals, right? So people that are actually still part of what happened in the Epstein are still alive today and still basically part of the government. And it's not just one side. There's people pointing fingers at the left or the right, and it's not. There's clearly both sides were well implicated in whatever the fuck's going on here. A lot of people were, to the point at which basically no one. A lot of people don't want it to be released, as it turns out. A lot of people don't want things to be released. So it's not. And the difference, JFK files were released almost all at once, although allegedly there's still some that are missing. However, the sources on it, it's all over the place, guys. It's like a mishmash, conspiracy theory, actual stuff that happened, and like UAPs mixed with the assassination conspiracy theorists, and then they just mix mash like the conspiracy theories over the years with the files that were released, even though they weren't part of the files that were released, which is also another big thing, by the way. And it is literally all over the fucking place. None of it makes. Well, I don't want to say none of it makes sense. It's a lot of noise, an absolute boatload of noise of people just doing random things, or having their random takes on it, which were somewhat disproven, some which might still be proven, some which were proven. And it is like, I mean, it's pretty clear at this point that a couple things that happened was the CIA was actually definitely caused it. They knew what Oswald was doing it. There was multiple shooters. Israel. So like this is like, I don't want to use the word developing because it's used as a catch-all for anything that's happening. But it really is developing, basically because 60,000 pages, a lot of effort, a lot of time. There's gonna be historians combing this shit for years. There's so much information that's being released right now in the terms of the JFK files. Yeah, just it is like, I don't know. It's pretty. I would say very much pretty unprecedented at this point. What's going on right now? And it's not even something where you can really just completely disprove something. There's one direction. It keeps changing. There's a lot of stuff. Apparently Israel is implicated in it. JFK possibly didn't want Israel to have nuclear weapons. And as such, he was murdered. What's the guy's name? Musammed did it. Was part of what ordered it, and then the CIA helped carry it out, along with, and then Israel got nuclear weapons too on top of it. There's like a lot of really weird things going on, little weird things. And in addition to that, like some of the stuff, the 99. So there was, I don't know if there was a release in 98 or 99. But there's things making the round right now, which is the redactions that weren't done, because obviously everything's unredacted, right? And the redactions are basically from 98, showing that they wanted to redact basically Israel's involvement in it, too, which is pretty fucking insane, too. Yeah, it's like the only thing that they wanted to have censored was basically all mentions of Israel in the documents. There's a lot of really weird things going on. And they're just scratching the surface is completely, it's not even close to being done. It is like pure chaos. Everything is pure chaos right now, guys. You remember, like, it was a couple days ago I said there's a disturbance in the force because it felt that way, and then it literally just, like, everything just started happening, like, just like, I don't even know how to describe it. This is the pyramid thing, which we're going to cover today, which is even more remarkable probably than even the JFK assassinations, the Epstein files, the left going completely off the rails. There's just like so much shit going on right now. I need to get my coffee, guys, one second. Just like crazy. Absolutely crazy. Oh my god. Like a conspiracy theorist wet dream going on here, guys. Like, I can't even make this stuff up. Absolutely insane. As I said, yeah. Also, my sleep schedule is rotating. I don't even know what's going on right now. In addition to all this shit going on, also on top of it, like, I swear to God, yesterday, guys, I did absolutely nothing, and the entire day just disappeared. I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it just... I think I'm hooked up to the hive mind too much. Yeah. But, like, I don't know. This is all really fucking weird. Really weird. And, like, so we have the JFK files, the Epstein files, the left being completely crazy and doing all sorts of random shit, and basically acting like a hive mind mentality, in addition to the pyramid thing, which is what I really wanted to talk about tonight, because this seems like bigger than everything. Is what's bigger than, like, all the political chaos going on right now? Aliens is basically what it comes down to. NHIs, UAPs. And what's happened in Egypt is there was a press conference. All this was really, you need tinfoil hat, no shit. I mean, I should actually get a tinfoil hat just to wear it when I'm doing stuff like this, because, like, I clearly know how some of this stuff sounds. But in the case of what's going on tonight, like, this isn't even tinfoil hat. Like, they released the JFK files, right? That's not even tinfoil hat anymore. There's 60, I think last I checked, there's 62,000 pages, and they're still scanning them in. And supposedly, according to Luna, who is the head of Disclosure Task Force, she said, I think there's around 80,000 pages? Like, insane amount of information. Like, just completely withheld from the public. Yeah. Oh my god. Absolutely fucking crazy. And like I said, like, some of the stuff that they already started linking in the JFK files, which is also really monumental, and this is, like I said, this is going to take forever for people to go through this shit, was Israel's involvement. The CIA basically might have actually caused it to happen or helped it happen. The CIA was heavily tracking Oswald, which is the guy that shot him, but they didn't care. Yeah. Like, they literally were complicit, I think it is, where they basically helped along with it. Yeah, we got some really weird shit going on here, guys. In addition to JFK not wanting Israel to have nuclear arms, and that's possibly one of the reasons he was shot. Then there's the this is the JFK stuff here, right? Then we have the tinfoil hat shit, which is, they're called the Mystic 7 files. Basically, top secret files that are part of the conspiracy theory community, which is what JFK wanted, that links him to UAPs. But they're also saying that these are part of this, but I don't think they are. This is actually conspiracy theory stuff that's been known about for a while. Yeah, which is a possibility JFK got executed over here in the tinfoil hat crowd. He got executed or killed because people thought that he wanted UAP disclosure. UFO disclosure basically is what it comes down to, which is also pretty ridiculous. Like, and the thing about this is tonight, guys, it's not even... So we have the Epstein files, which are also arguably still should be a big thing, but for some strange reason they dropped off the face of the earth. Because, once again, it actually implicates people that are still alive, whereas the JFK files don't really. Most people in JFK files are dead. Deceased, right? Yeah, and then we have the pyramids, which is what we're going to talk about tonight, which is, there is an Italian, I don't know what they are, excavation firm, they call themselves Expedition, which basically mapped the Khufu pyramid with LiDAR, SAR LiDAR, which is, like, they have a version of LiDAR that basically helps them see further underground. And what they found was there's, like, you can't make this stuff up. There is, according to them, there are 6 cylinders under the Khufu pyramid. You're like, well, why the fuck does that matter? Because they're literally a football field long, underground under the pyramids. And they're gigantic. Absolutely fucking huge, that connect up to an 80-meter cubes below the pyramid. And... like, why does this really matter? It's because they didn't have technology that's capable. Like, the pyramids, as far as today go, like, we basically came up with our own confirmation bias explanation is why they go, as best we can tell, what, how they were built, right? Which is with levers, pulleys, basic understanding of the time, and then a more recent observation was they used hydraulics. So they used basically water in containers to help push, basically, how you push in a, like how hydraulics work with a water ram. So you push fluid into it, and it causes another fluid to arrive. I'm sure you've seen it at, like, a science facility, right? Or a science research center, where it just goes up and down, like, where they have those engagements with kids sort of thing, where you can push up fluids. They are postulating that they're using those to build the pyramids. So basically stuff that we've relatively well understood, right? Well, that is... Today, guys, it is very difficult for people to build a mile-long cylinder underground without it caving in. We have literally tunnel boring machines to do that, right? TBMs, and they're gigantic fucking moving buildings underground that they drill out with a giant bore on the front, they drill out the dirt, and then they basically line it with concrete. That's how they make underground tunnels and basically highways, right? Really advanced shit. So how the fuck did the Egyptians... I mean, I don't think there's really any way we can prove it, but the very fact that even if they're empty, too, this is the thing, it's not like granite or filled in. These are, according to this firm, which they're going to be releasing more information, including technical documents on it, they're hollow. So there's hollow giant cylinders underneath the pyramids. And you're like, this is like, if it wasn't being released by an actual reputable, like, scientists, who also have a white paper, by the way, they have a LiDAR white paper from 22. Scientists, maybe we should let's actually start looking at some of this stuff now. Aren't scientists, like, there's no way you'd believe any of this shit, right? Like, yeah, just haha, another conspiracy theory, haha, teehee. Yeah, but it's not. This is actually stuff that's happening right now, which is absolutely insane. Crazy shit. And then just on top of, like, Twitter has literally just been going off the rails the last couple days. Absolutely insane. Let's see. Warren William. Doing pretty good. Like, some of this stuff, guys, is just... What the guy's name? Geese, pyramids. Maybe I can find it. Geese. Egyptian goose, no. And then robotics too, guys. There was a dancing robot from China that literally basically copied, essentially... like, robotics actually seems like it's literally... You're going to have house robots in, like, 2 years. Let's see. Dancing Chinese robot. Called X Dance. So this is a new... We're gonna... Dude, I don't... Like, this is... All this shit is all happening right around this. It's very weird how coincidental a lot of this shit is. Because this is like on top of the JFK, the Epstein files, crazy left-leaning people in the U.S. literally setting fire to Teslas. You have fucking... Basically... futuristic robots that are now going to be in your living room, like not in the future, but like almost production robots that are going to be in your house. And then you have cylinders under the fucking pyramid. It's like all in like a couple weeks, like 2 weeks. Just very, very information dense heavy, or very, very information density, very information dense. And this is Engine AI. So they did this. So what's happening right here is she's dancing. And the robot is copying, which is actually, this is pretty insane. So this is basically like mocap. This is mocap for is learning from what she's doing, which is dancing. And at first, by the way, I thought this was fucking CG. At first I fucking thought this was CG. I was like, nah, that looks fucking fake as shit, right? That's not foreboding. I don't want to get DMCA'd here. I don't know if this is actually DMCA stuff. It might be. Actually, no, this is on YouTube, right? Yeah. This is what China's doing. And if you notice, it gets weirder. There's no way. There's no fucking way, guys. I thought this was fucking CG. There's absolutely no way. Yeah.
这个就叫专业。想学啊你？我教你啊。
Yeah, like I don't you what? Yeah. And then they actually showed there's a behind. They showed a behind the scenes. Yeah, just hang on here. Just hang on. This gets better. So we aren't done yet. I thought this was CG because he looks like plastic, but plastic actually looks that way in real life when it's cheap. Yeah, I turned off links because we had a bunch of bots. At first, I thought this was fucking fake, right? It's not actually. I mean, this is where I thought it was fake. So if you look at this, guys, this looks alright, but this looks like it's fake right here. When it goes to the side, not this. This off angle. This looks fake. So they got this right here. This looks fake. This looks like CGI. Right? It has that weird fake glossy look to it, which actually might just be the way that it looks in real life. But this right here looks like it's CGI. This looks relatively normal-ish now. Yeah. Like, this is actually stuff futuristic shit, guys. This is stuff that you wouldn't actually, like, yeah, this came out of nowhere from NHIs, so a Chinese company. My first comment to this, by the way, was Boston Dynamics should actually check for a data leak. They should check for a mole, is basically what it came down to, because the only ones that have basically been advertising this level of, what do you call it, articulation, is basically Boston Dynamics. Boston Dynamics, you know, with the robot dogs, right, and where they push the robot around and it stands up and shit like that, which also, for some reason, despite Boston Dynamics been around for like 25 years, they've been around a long time, hasn't really released a mainstream product at all, despite basically having tech demos like every year, every other year. They haven't really released anything, which is pretty crazy, by the way. But absolutely insane. So I was like, you know, this kind of looks fake. And then they did a behind the scenes where they showed an off angle from a phone, allegedly from a phone. Yeah. This is just out of nowhere. This still looks like CG, but it also could just look like cheap plastic. So, a couple things going on there. Where's the phone one? Here it is. It sounds like the cheap plastic it's made out of, by the way. And you might, by the way, you might go, oh, it's just dancing. How's it a big deal, right? Why does it matter that it's fucking dancing? Because it takes more effort for a robot to dance than it does take it to make it shuffle across the floor and pick something up. Like, dancing is actually a very articulate movement, right? It is something that isn't very easy to come by. This is actually a huge deal. Because not only does it show that whether or not it's actually mocapped or whether or not this is actually learned behavior is also a very big differentiation point, right? And it's actually, like, we might literally have robots in our houses in 2 years, guys. This is insane because this is pretty close, and especially China loves pushing things very fast. This is very close to something you can actually expect in your house, right? Like something that actually is more than something gimmicky, just like vacuuming your floor or something, right? So, not fake, not actually fake, and you're like, oh, that's fucking hilarious. And I tweeted at Boston Dynamics, by the way. I tweeted at Boston Dynamics. Yeah, robot armor. I'm sure that's on the table, by the way. That's yeah. I mean, the drones are already being used for that, which is also kind of weird because drones are basically like slower missiles, but they're a lot cheaper. So the weird thing about drones and the prevalence of drones in Ukraine and Russia's conflict is the fact that they're basically shittier missiles, right? That's what they are. They're just shitty missiles. But they're so cost effective that you can just basically make thousands of drones for the same price as you can make like one US missile, which, you know, is an accessibility thing, right? But anyways, that's neither here nor there. And then, in response to this, it's even in the feed, by the way. In response to this is 3 days ago, we have this from Boston Dynamics, which isn't as impressive, but Boston Dynamics actually releases, like, they aren't just making shit up, right? Absolutely fucking crazy. So basically, this, according to them, this is mo capture, so it's capturing an actual person. And it's I mentioned before, like, Boston Dynamics, that's the video you want to link. Yeah, exactly. So this is a follow-up video to what the Chinese just did, showing an axe stance, which is Boston Dynamics showing off what their robot can do, right? Which, arguably, this is more realistic than what the Chinese video is, by the way. And I'd say this is less likely to be doctored or fake in general, right? Like, set up. What the fuck? Like, yeah. Like, the whole idea, by the way, like, Boston Dynamics is really, this always struck me as a really weird company. I've thought about this over the years, guys. It's always struck me as a really weird company because they like, push technology, right? They've been pushing robotics for years. The whole idea of robots in your house, they've been pushing for 25 years. Like, when I was in high school. But they don't actually have a product. Like, you go to their webpage and they have, like, some products, like with Spot, but Spot's not even that old. Spot's like maybe 6, 7, maybe 8 years old. Spot's not that old. That's the little walking yellow dog, right? They don't really have anything. Yeah. I don't fucking know. I don't know what they do. Like, this is the weird thing. How the fuck did they get funded for highly futuristic robotics for decades? And they still don't have a mainstream product. Any company would go bankrupt by now, right? But they're still making this shit. Where are these going? Where the fuck are these robots going, guys? I don't know. They don't exist in the public. I've never seen a fucking Boston Dynamic robot. But look at, like, this is mocap. It's literally captured or learned from a person, just like the Chinese robot. However, in this case, it's most definitely legit. And I mentioned before, like, I tweeted at them that they should literally get 3 breakdancers and show us what they can do. This isn't really, compared to the last, like, what the Chinese company was doing, this isn't good marketing. You can do better than this, but engineers see this and they go, wow, they clap their hands. You know, you're supposed to be able to, you know. Yeah, but their dog isn't even that old. And the dog arguably doesn't really do much of anything, right? A robot that can actually articulate things is a little bit different than a dog. Because you live in a house, right? And dogs can only do so much. It's just the way it goes. You gonna get Spot's gonna do your dishes? No. A robot can do your dishes, assuming that it's set up for it, right? That's matters. What matters is stuff around your house, right? And arguably a dog wouldn't be able to do much of anything. I also saw Case Not, I think he bought Spot. He bought the dog too. But yeah, like this is the stuff that people are really interested in, right? Atlas, and this is, by the way, one of the variants of Atlas. Atlas used to be gigantic. It had a giant backpack with tethers on it and shit. What the fuck is this? Like, he was literally twice the size of this. What the fuck are they powering it with is a better idea. Like, how the fuck can you make it so... it's a lot of things in technology, guys, come down to their power source, and lithium batteries are the best, basically, power source we currently have, right? Lithium-ion batteries are the best power source. We've had them since the 90s. And they haven't really gotten better. They're like slight breakthroughs, but battery EVs are powered by lithium batteries. That's what they go off of, and they have to be changed out. The fact that you have this guy here, which arguably is using a lot of electricity to move around, powered by a lithium battery, he lasts like 5 minutes and he's done. That's what she said. So what exactly... Assuming this guy lasts more than 5 minutes, what the fuck is he being powered by? Maybe 15 minutes? Like the amount of servos and actuators going on right now to make him actually do stuff like this is insane. You could buy the robot and allow people to tell the robot what to do for subscription fees. There is a model. There is a model there, Idwin. I'm not exactly sure I want the robot dog murdering me, though, but... Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So this was in response, by the way, like, there's stuff like this, which is where they're actually showing the robot actually doing meaningful tasks, right?
Is the promise of a truly flexible robotic solution.
We aren't even covering... This is like stark... Guys, we aren't even covering what I wanted to talk about today, which is the pyramid thing.
The world was...
Next robot... Like, so... Funny time to stop. The number one case for robots is literally fucking shoving an AI in a fleshlight. Let's be perfectly honest here, guys. The sex industry is usually on top of everything because people spend money on things because people want to talk about it, but people love sex. That's just the way it goes. You can try and guilt people all you want, but people love sex. It's the hobby oldest time itself. As far as what things people have done, it's sex. It literally comes down to sex. Just like food, which is another part of your id, right? Your subconscious is sex. People love sex. It's the way we are. We're supposed to procreate, unless the far left got a hold of you, in which case you're not supposed to like sex anymore because you're a guy. But I guess I'm not part of that, so I don't need to care. But if you drink the Kool-Aid, you can't like sex if you're a guy. So I'm not, but otherwise, unless your handler gives you permission, by the way. Weird juxtaposition, but it's just the thing that happens, right? And as such, a lot of people are willing to spend money on things that otherwise they wouldn't spend money on, like VR goggles, right? Because people love sex. It's just the way it goes. It's the thing, oldest time itself, just like prostitution is, right? Weirdly enough, which we don't really have in the U.S., but that's oldest time as itself, is just people selling their bodies. But this is just the thing that people like. Roman times, ancient times, medieval times, people love it. You know, it gives you all the serotonin and dopamine. Put aside the fact that there might actually... there might be links between arousal and psionics, which are also developing. If you guys haven't watched the telepathy tapes, I highly suggest that right now in your free time, which is the idea that psionics or psychic abilities are basically latently part of humans, and that people are discovering more and more, as weirdly enough, as science is starting to open up a little bit to the idea of things outside the norm, that we actually have psionic powers. And I just read a study, Ross, so we talked a little bit about News Nation, Ross being one of the reporters for it, posted a link to a study in Canada a year ago. Sometimes stuff takes a while to trend, right? They had a scientific study in Canada where they added temporary lesions to people's brains and discovered people were becoming psychically active and able to predict things. Like, I'm not even fucking making this shit up. It was a white paper from last year. Like, what is even going on here? I don't even understand this shit, guys. RTMS. This is a white paper. This is actual science. This isn't just made up tinfoil hat shit, guys. There's a lot of weird shit going on here. Yeah, this was last year in January, but it took a year before basically everyone picked it up, which is, yeah. Trying to discover how humans can read minds and how you can tap into telepathic abilities. So we're going to take a segue from the robots, which are also just happening, is this, which is RTMS, which is they found a way of creating basically a temporary scar on your brain that turns off, as part of your frontal lobe, I believe. It turns off basically part of your brain, which then makes you more psychically active. If this is not, if science wasn't actually doing this, by the way, part of my green screen, but the sun's being a dumbass right now, so don't mind that. But yeah, your brain is blocking your psychic abilities. Let's just quickly. There's a lot of stuff to cover tonight, guys. You might even get to games.
Scientists have discovered how to unlock telepathic abilities.
This is actually a paper. This is in Daily Mail.
The brains of every human. Researchers in Canada uncovered that parts of the brain actually act as a psi inhibitor, meaning it suppresses the natural psychic, telepathic, and clairvoyant abilities people have but don't know about. When scientists turned off this filter by inducing reversible brain lesions in the frontal lobes of volunteers, it enhanced the patient's psi abilities, allowing them to influence objects with their minds. Psi is a phenomenon that includes telepathy, mind-mind connection.
Guys, what the fuck is happening? What the fuck is going on here? Like, I don't fucking understand. Like, the last couple days, guys, the last 2 weeks have been insane. Absolutely insane. Like, came out a year ago, but it only started trending in the last week. With basically everything else telepathic that's been trending now, too. Psionic abilities have been trending. Like, where we talked about the Jake Barber, right? The UAP Jake Barber UAP. Started trending with that, where he started talking about basically contacting UAPs, so the things that were floating with psionic abilities was sounding like bullshit, right? But then you have the telepathy tapes now alleging that basically not only is it part of humans, but it's like latent abilities on top of the fact that autistic people. So with the telepathy tapes, which you guys should watch, by the way, or read, listen to, the telepathy tapes, they're going through case-by-case basis where basically they have people that are autistic, and they're finding out that even though they're cognitively stinted in one way, such as language, right, as autistic children generally are, or people in general, but they actually were able to develop, you know how, like, if you lose your eyesight, your hearing becomes more acute? They're actually able to develop abilities that were completely outside of normal cognition stuff, like observation. Absolutely crazy bonkers shit. And this came out last year, which is, like, I wouldn't even believe this if this wasn't a fucking white paper, which I found the white paper, by the way, because that's very important when you start talking about shit like this. Is really unbelievable, is that there's actually science being done here, and it's not just someone like me having a tinfoil hat moment, right?
Psi is a phenomenon that includes telepathy, mind-mind connections, clairvoyance, perception of future events or distant objects, precognition.
I want to point out, by the way, that for some reason they chose to go from a colloquial. This is, you know how we talked about they went from UFOs to UAPs to avoid the stigma with UFOs, right? With psi abilities, they went from psychic to psionic, which is basically the same thing, by the way. Psychic and psionic are the same thing. But psychic denotes the idea of someone, you know, a fortune teller sitting in a booth somewhere trying to scam you out of money, right? Where psionic seems like a new scientific, like sci-fi term, which is, even though they're basically the same thing. I can't explain this shit, guys. Like, it's not like explaining this as explaining all of this happening at the fucking same time. That's the biggest thing, is like, coincidences, guys, are weird. When you have one coincidence is weird, 2, it gets even weirder, and then 3, 4, 5, you have all this shit just like happening at exactly the same moment is really, really fucking weird. Really weird. It's the coincidences all together, all happening at the same time. And we didn't even get to the fucking alien shit with the, possibly alien shit with the pyramids. We haven't got that far yet.
Psi is a phenomenon that includes telepathy, mind-mind connections, clairvoyance, perception of future events or distant objects, precognition.
Weird thing about
Knowing
this
what will happen
is it doesn't
before
even
it
feel
does,
like that odd to
and
me, and I don't
psychokinesis,
understand why.
moving objects with
Like,
your
I'm obviously excited, but like it doesn't feel like it's just that far out
The
of the
filter
ordinary
was
now.
turned off by a process called repetitive transcranial
RTMS.
magnetic stimulation, RTMS, which uses a non-invasive device to send magnetic waves to specific brain regions. In experiments, volunteers with these brain lesions developed the power to change the outcomes of a random event generator, REG, with their minds. Moving the arrow on a computer screen which was choosing zeros and ones at random.
The fuck?
Lead researcher Maurice Friedman of Baycrest Health Sciences said these findings are potentially transformative for the way we view interactions between the brain and seemingly random events. The brain filter discovery may significantly advance research in the area of psi,
Like,
helping
it's
to
an
bring this
area already?
phenomenon into the realm of mainstream science, Dr. Friedman added.
Yeah, because this is crackpot shit, right? This is tinfoil hat moments. This is the stuff that you don't normally believe. And I wouldn't believe it if there wasn't science being done on it. Insane. Absolutely fucking insane. The more interesting thing here, guys, which we're going to talk about here in a second, isn't even that this is happening. I'm gonna elaborate on this. If you guys haven't figured it out yet, elaborate on this.
The idea that a small number of gifted people have supernatural abilities, and even psychic powers, has been around for centuries. Throughout history, there have been accounts of famous individuals who allegedly had the power to predict the future, including Nostradamus and Edgar Cayce. However, the 2024
I want to point out, precognition or knowing the future, I think might not actually be the same as my take on this. Isn't the same as actually reading the future, as much as being able to tap into the hive mind of humans. So if you can imagine a giant supercomputer, which we are all part of, which is essentially the hive mind of people, which probably explains why there's crazies blowing up Teslas right now, where they're a little bit too tapped into the hive mind, where we basically can use our collective consciousness as like a supercomputer. You'd technically be able to predict or be able to figure out what people's motives are that wouldn't otherwise be able to tell you, and you'd be able to essentially predict the future, but you wouldn't be able to predict the future. You're just predicting what other people are doing because they're thinking about doing it, right? So it's not even necessarily predicting the future as much as a bunch of people that are trying to, like do something or thinking about doing something that then do it, basically. So you're reading essentially their minds, not so much that you can read into the future, right? Is at least my take on it, because being able to predict the future with your brain seems a little far-fetched. That would also infer that basically we have no free will or something along those lines, right? Which I also don't think is true.
However, the 2024 study in the journal Cortex was based on a radical idea that the human brain might actively block psychic abilities, meaning
What the
everyone
fuck?
might
Who would
have
even think
access to
that?
them.
It's guys.
Scientists noted.
Guys, this isn't even thinking that we haven't developed. This is like segue on a segue of a segue here, guys. Is the idea that I think a lot of stuff on our planet's been seeded by NHIs. Basically, someone with a plan, and seeded, I don't mean necessarily. It's like giving a monkey a tool, right? So we just get a tool out of nowhere, and you're just like, hey, play around with this sort of ordeal. And it feels an awful lot like that's what's happening on our planet, which is a lot of this stuff is just happening because someone feels as though we're ready for it and then gives us a new tool to play around with. Like, it feels an awful lot like a lot of our technology and our advances are being bootstrapped by someone else to basically vastly increase how fast we develop, which I'm not personally against. I hope we have fucking first contact in my lifetime, because that'd be phenomenal. My fucking kid in me loves the idea, right? But I'm still very critical of everything around me. And if it's tinfoil hat, I'll talk about it, but I'm going to say it's a tinfoil hat, right? I realize that this is far outside the ordinary, and that maybe it's not necessarily going to be correct, right? But, like, I don't fucking know. Some of this stuff is really, it is, like, who would even decide that we don't have powers that, we haven't developed the powers, and they're just underdeveloped in our mind. It's the opposite, that the powers are there, they're just being suppressed. Why would you ever think that? It's like the idea of, like, who first came up with, I don't know, like, who the popular meme online is, who decided to melt rocks and turn them into fucking computers? I don't fucking know. That's absolutely insane, right? The supercomputers are just silicone, or the general processing units, or CPU. The whole idea of it is pretty ridiculous for the average person to ever grasp, right? Yet we've figured that out. And the weird thing about this, though, is it's kind of along the same lines, but this is in the opposite direction. Everyone, including myself, that would ever think about psychic powers would be like, we just haven't developed them well enough. There's part of our brain that we haven't accessed, or maybe is like, I guess that's technically kind of the same way. Maybe we just haven't, completely been able to train part of our brain to work properly, right? In the form of psychics. So like, like Harry Potter learning how to use magic, right? It's entirely possible, right? But this is the opposite direction. They decided that if you shut off parts of your brain, you become more psychic, which it's the opposite direction. It's already there. You just need to, something's blocking it, right? It's just like, it's the opposite of what people would think, which is you have to develop it, but instead it's already developed, but you need to be able to access it, right? And how would you, which we'll get to in a second, but the idea behind that is completely very bonkers for a lot of different reasons.
Scientists noted that if these powers really existed, evolution should have favored them and made them dominant human traits.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly that hasn't happened, even though many people claim to occasionally experience psychic phenomena, like knowing someone is about to call you before they do it.
I've experienced this a lot, guys.
Friedman and
I've talked about I wouldn't say it's psychic, but not really even premonitions, but rather there's a lot of, I call it prompting, basically where I get someone to do something else just based on doing something. I'll talk about it all the time in video games when I'm playing them, when I make someone, essentially make someone do something without there being any stimulus for them to do it. Like in Rivals, for instance, it oftentimes feels like people are cheating, where my alt pops up, and then right as I'm thinking about using it, right at that exact moment, where I am getting ready to use my alt, and I haven't shifted in a Psylocke to use my Q, right? Right at that exact moment, when I'm thinking, I want to use my alt right now, and getting ready to do so, but not actually prompting people, such as dashing and alerting them to what I'm doing, an enemy will pop an alt, like a defensive alt. And it could actually be cheating. That's other options. People see that my ability turned on, and then they cheat, right? But it's actually, it's seeming more and more, I'm gaslighting myself at this point, it's seeming more and more like I'm actually just getting them to do it because I'm thinking about doing it, but I haven't done it, or I haven't actually used an ability. You know how I go, it was before I actually used my ability. Like, sometimes the weird thing about this is there's a lag period after I'm getting ready to use my alt and use my really powerful ability. I'm getting ready to use my really powerful ability. There's a lag time in which someone else will do it. It's like I prompt them, once again, like AI. They'll use their defensive ability, but I still have time to not use my offensive ability. So because there's this what's the correct word for it? There's this deciding period, different word. There's this deciding period in which I am actually still computing whether or not I want to use it, right? And I haven't used it yet. And I'll even mention this in video games if you guys watch me play Rivals, which I'm sure you all do because you love my channel. There is this period in which I can actually stop using my alt, and I essentially trigger them using a defensive alt. And by the way, it's not like they're doing something else, by the way. I've already considered the thought that maybe they're responding to someone else. But there are plenty of cases where I've turned around, and none of the enemy team are in danger. I've looked at what's going on. No one's in danger. It's not like they used it because my teammates were also alting or something, right? And you can hear when your teammates alt too. It's not there. They literally used it for no real reason right as I'm about to alt. So, this is probably one of the most concrete examples I can offer that happens relatively frequently, is in which I'm literally watching, and by the way, the stimulus, there's stimulus in games, so you can't weed that out completely, but it is not like, in Psylocke, you can tell when she's about to alt, where she literally just dashes in, right? You can tell she's going to alt, right? There's prompts for it. There stimuli for it. You can tell that she's about to do something, outside the ordinary. People can pick that up, especially good players. But what I'm mentioning is when I don't even do that, but people still respond with a defensive alt before I even use it. I first started experiencing this, I probably experienced it for a long time, but when I first started noticing this was, I had a big stick in MOBAs. I love Heroes of the Storm, by the way, and I still do to this day. I can't stream it because it's too small. But there are a lot of cases where I was playing Heroes of the Storm, And when I was about to basically do something prolific, I would have enemies responding to things that I do prior to me doing it. And I didn't stream it, so it's not even that they can be stream sniping me, right? They just know something's about to happen. In the case of Marvel Rivals, I have enemies backing up like they're afraid of me. And this is one of the things, I had people that would play with me in Heroes of Storm, and they actually said that you could tell the enemy team was afraid of me because they would all start running, basically being routed, or basically morale's broken. There's a lot of terms for it. Routing, routed is when people basically get scared and they start running away, right? And it's really bad for morale. When your morale breaks, it's really bad in terms of military. You have people that are actually running from you before you even do something that would warrant people actually running from you. Same thing happens in Rivals when I'm playing Psylocke and I'm doing phenomenal, or not even doing phenomenal, I'm just doing really good or just decent. And I start approaching, and in my mind, I'm already formulating a murder plan for these people in game. I'm already formulating a murder plan for basically enemies on the enemy team and how I'm going to approach them, and they start responding to my murder plan before I even. It's like they're literally reading my mind, which bugs me. By the way, it bugs me the fuck out because that makes it more difficult for me to actually be able to do anything meaningful in the game itself. But like you have people not only for my ult, which is a big deal and obviously be a huge prompt, but you have people responding to a murder plan, and they legit are literally already preparing. Like I've seen backlines, like three people. I've seen backlines separating from the front line. The moment I'm getting ready to engage my murder plan, these guys all start pulling back and like running away, but there's nothing to run away from. There's nothing there. I'm the only one that's there, and I haven't even engaged them yet, but they're already retreating. Like, in their mind, they've already decided that there's enough of a threat that they decide to pull away from the main pack or main group, regardless of what's going on around them. It's not everyone, by the way. This doesn't happen all the time, but there are clearly people, especially good players, in which they like pick up on like kind of like the hive mind highway or whatever, consciousness, whatever you want to call it. They pick up on this shit before it ever happens. And it really bugs the shit out of me because it makes my job much more difficult, by the way, because I have to not only like kind of almost gaslight myself or offer myself basically red pill, what was it calling, where basically you poison yourself, you poison your thoughts, so you basically feed them false information so they don't do it. Like, we're talking about some really advanced shit that really shouldn't ever matter. Tinfoil hat again. It really shouldn't ever matter. This stuff shouldn't ever happen, right? But it's happening in my games. It's been happening for a while now. And it bugs, like I said, it bugs the shit out of me because it makes things much more difficult. But it's stuff I'm legitimately been noticing in my games themselves. And I'm sure I'm not the only one, by the way, because it's really, really weird when this stuff starts happening. But like, it's not just even video games. Like, the thing about this is I offer Rivals because it's something where it's cause and effect, and you guys can watch it in my stream. When I'm off stream, I watch people play video games. I watch Twitch, right? And what I've noticed is I can actually, I don't even know if it's prompting the caster or being part of basically what's going on, but there's legitimate cases where I'm thinking about something and then a caster starts talking about what I'm thinking about. I can't explain it, and it would be one of these, like, it doesn't happen all the time, but there are some casters that seemingly pick up on it better than other casters, and they legitimately start talking about stuff that I've been thinking about. I mentioned before, and like I don't have like no one that watches me, so it's not really like I'm getting stream sniped or something like that, or they're really in touch with my ideas or something along those lines. But I've legit had cases where it seems like people are actually doing stuff that I've done on my stream, but it's like when I'm watching them, and then it's like stuff that I've talked about or weighed in on, and then all of a sudden they start talking just like completely out of nowhere, like it's just completely outside the scope of what they ordinarily think about or talk about, and then they just start talking about it. Or in the case of, like, sometimes I'll sneeze and then they'll sneeze, which is fucking hilarious, by the way. Or sometimes I will like take a drink of water and then they take a drink of water. Like, I don't really, it's some really fucking weird shit, guys, I've had going on, and like, it's coincidences. It very well could be coincidences. And then there's also other cases too, but these can be more in line with prompting. One of the weird things about online, or one of the cool things about online stuff, is when you talk about it, you're oftentimes cut off from stimuli. So in the case of scientific experiments, it's very difficult to isolate people. The thing with being online, assuming that you aren't communicating, is there's no communication. They can't see me. They can't hear me. They can't smell me. I smell great, by the way. They can't smell pheromones. They can't judge body language. They can't see the tone of what's going on behind the screen. They just do it. And like I've had a lot of really interesting relationships with people online, and romantic especially, in which it seems like people are literally like you're just really being on the same page as someone, which could obviously just be coming from just picking up on their interactions. But sometimes it happens completely impromptu with people that you barely know, which makes it even weirder because once again you're completely shut off from the stimuli, right? And I didn't expect the segue this long, but it's really getting fucking weird, guys, to be perfectly honest. And really, like stuff like this makes it even fucking weirder. So in the case here, they're talking about basically shutting off or basically damaging part of your brain or temporarily damaging part of your brain that then makes it so your psychic abilities are more active. In the case of autistic kids and telepathy tapes, which we just talked about a little bit earlier, you have kids that basically their minds might not be fully developed or unfortunately developed poorly or in a different way where they aren't really completely I don't want to say, they don't not everything's working properly, right? And it could actually lead to a scenario where parts of their brain that develop normally that would block cognition or the ability to use psychic abilities didn't develop properly. The filter didn't develop properly. And yeah, we're reaching a really weird shit. So in this case, instead of these guys being autistic or having some sort of problem in their brain, they're actually instituting, like basically damaging part of their brain, which then just makes it so they can actually use psychic abilities or a lot better. Crazy fucking shit, guys.
So, Friedman and a team in Toronto began examining the human brain to see if something is actively preventing these powers from coming to the surface.
Complete opposite of what you'd think. Not training, it's already there.
108 healthy people and split them into 3 groups, each one receiving RTMS on a different part of the brain. Typically, RTMS is performed to treat conditions like depression, but the scientists in this experiment used the procedure to disrupt brain activity. One group received this treatment on the right medial middle frontal region and another received a placebo treatment which did not change their brains. Neither group saw any change in their psi abilities after RTMS therapy. However, the volunteers who received RTMS on their left medial middle frontal region saw these abilities increase noticeably. This study confirmed our hypothesis, Friedman said in a statement from the Bial Foundation, which supported the research. Individuals with neurological or reversible RTMS-induced frontal lesions may represent a useful group for detection and replication of this phenomenon.
Yeah. So basically they cause a lesion in your brain, which then makes it so you can actually use or have increased psychic ability, which is insane.
The left medial middle frontal region plays a critical role in higher brain functions. Scientists have found that this area of the frontal lobe contributes to executive functioning, which includes planning, making decisions, and working towards our goals. It also appears to help people focus their attention and suppress irrelevant or inappropriate impulses. Now, Friedman suggests the left medial middle frontal region may be suppressing much more than human urges. The world's fascination with unlocking their psychic gifts is certainly growing in recent years. In fact, a new podcast called The Telepathy Tapes replaced the Joe Rogan Experience as the #1 most popular audio show on Spotify in January.
This came out once again last January, not this one, so 24.
Co-hosted by journalist and filmmaker Kai Dickens and psychiatrist Dr. Diane Hennessy Powell, the show explores the profound abilities of people with autism who can't speak. Those abilities, according to Dickens and Dr. Powell, include telepathy, access to infinite knowledge, and the power to visit heaven. On a recent episode of the Joe Rogan Experience, Rogan said he listens to the show and believes some telepathy is real. "I'm only on episode 2, but it's really fascinating, man," he added. As for Michel de Nostradame, or Nostradamus, he was a French apothecary and seer who published prophecies from 1550 until his death in 1568. He was credited with predicting some of history's most noteworthy events, include the Great Fire of London and the rise of Adolf Hitler. Was it just a lucky guess, or true psi abilities? Humans may soon be able to unlock the answer hiding in our minds.
Prior to this, guys, by the way, prior to this taking off in the last year, and especially in the last 2 months, I've always suggested, or 3 months, I've always suggested that humans have, like, I thought was underdeveloped psychic powers, like just barely getting there. And the reason for that is because we just talked about earlier with being online, some things you can kind of feel through the matrix without actually seeing people. Normally you're cut off, you just get words through a screen, right? It doesn't fucking matter. But there are cases in which, 2 notable cases in which you definitely very, very much, like, people just get really, really weird vibes, and it just feels completely out of the ordinary. And it doesn't happen all the time, by the way. One of which is rage. So when you can tell someone is extremely, extremely angry. And I'm not talking about in the way of just angry words, right, or swearing. You can tell, like, when things are really, really heated, just like you would in real life, right, where your skin on your arms starts standing up, and you get the anxious gut feeling, and everything feels kind of weird and uncomfortable, right? Where especially if someone's trying to bulldog you by being super aggressive or assertive, right? And you can tell when it's happening. It's really, really weird, despite the fact that you're basically cut off and there's no stimuli. It's just words, right? Just words. But you get some people that are really, really weird. The other one is lust, which is another big one. It's not necessarily love, although I'm sure love is there. But in the case of lust, it's really, really kind of like super heightened arousal. And it turns into something that's more than just, getting your rocks off, more or less, to be a little bit crude. It takes on a completely different feel, and it's not something it's not normal, and it doesn't happen all the time, and it's not just when you're just enjoying something with someone or anything along those lines. It feels completely fucking different. And I've always attributed these two in the last, like, I'd say maybe 7 years, which I've definitely felt these things going on. And it wasn't until, like, this last year, especially the last 3 months, in which this has really started taking off. Everyone always considers psychic to be crazy, right? The person that reads the tarot cards or something like that. And it's actually, maybe it's true. I mean, there's sure plenty of people that are grifters and crazies, but it's actually seeming more and more like there's actually people that actually might be psychic, right? And it's not just that. There's actually science that's starting to back this up. But before we get off this, I want to actually show there is a white paper. This is the medical paper. No, maybe not. No, this is for mental conditions. The white paper. Enhanced matter interactions following RTMS-induced frontal lobe inhibition. This is actually white paper, March 24th. So a little over... Hey, look, guys, we're almost exactly a year after this was published. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, so this is actually the scientific paper where they talk about it. Peer-reviewed scientific paper. They go into the results and actually talk about it. Did you want the... I'll post it in chat if you guys want this, but this is literally... Otherwise, you can just Google it, and it'll bring it up. Actual scientific paper. This isn't just made up bullshit. So, like, yeah. We're getting some really interesting stuff going on here, guys. I'm gonna point, like, it's not just the one thing, too. This is, like, the thing about this is not just one thing. It is a bunch of things that are all happening relatively frequently, all around the same time. Nobody's going to read. Scientists are going to read that. You might not read that, but scientists are going to read that. So, Yeah, like really, really weird shit, guys. Yeah, so smart people actually read these. This is, like, I read these in college, so it's not... There isn't a nobody's going to read this. Smart people read this, and you just don't, so... Yeah, white papers actually have sort of a really big purpose, because this is basically, this is actually a scientific experiment. This is where this is where science is done, guys. Where they actually tested them, and used stats for it. Pretty crazy shit. Pretty fucking great. Like, we're really in the beginning of stuff. And now we're going to pull back from our segue here, which is literally talking about psionics, which is, yeah, just kind of completely came out of nowhere. And then we got our friend here at Boston Dynamics, where we're talking about sex robots. What'd you call me? I said you're not the person that would read it. And I mentioned that really smart people would read that. So, you know, you can figure out whatever that means. I wouldn't. And then we have back to our robots, which are literally getting to the point of entering our house.
The promise of humanoids is that they will be able to enter into those human-built environments and immediately add value.
The previous generation of Atlas was able to do a lot of really athletic things, from running around, jumping.
Yeah, this is the guy that you used to see.
And so that made it a really interesting research platform for us to explore the limits of whole body control. But there are some downsides to hydraulics as well, right? They're very complex, they're quite expensive, they're difficult to maintain, and they're messy. Right? Our old lab used to have a thin coat of oil on it at all times. And we got to the point in our humanoid development where we realized that using the battery technology that we developed on the previous generation of Atlas, and by building our own electronic actuators, that we could build a humanoid that was strictly faster, strictly stronger, and more compact, and less.
Not sure it was stronger.
Just manipulating objects is something that people spend very little time consciously thinking about. We've had an entire lifetime of interaction with the world to train our control system so that we know how to predict what's going to happen, and we know how to send commands to different parts of our body in order to achieve.
Oh, those are some good
tasks.
squats.
Robots, by and large, do not have that wealth of experience. And part of the exciting work that is happening in AI, and that we're doing ourselves as well, is trying to use the rich data sources that
Once again, what the fuck did they even make
from all of our robots, whether they're deployed out in the real world, whether they're
when was the last time you saw one of those guys
being generated in simulation, in order to train models that have a similar ability to generalize and a similar ability to error correct when trying to do fundamentally new manipulation tasks. And I think that's one of the places where I would expect AI to significantly change how we perceive the capabilities of robots over the next couple of years.
This is like all coming together at exactly the right moment.
Sequencing is a logistics task in the automotive manufacturing world that was created in order to allow manufacturers to produce many different customizations and variations of vehicles.
Sequencing has commercial value, but also from a research perspective, from a building blocks perspective, has a lot of the complexities that we think are necessary to be able to develop general purpose manipulation robots.
The sequencing process is taking thousands and thousands of different variants of parts and putting them into the specific order in which cars are going to be produced, making sure that the cars can be produced more quickly and more accurately than they were before.
For this task, we've given Atlas a basic description of the end state that we want. So we have this output dolly that needs to be filled with engine covers in a particular order. And we've also given it a description of where it can look to find those engine covers. Once it has this, it basically goes in order of the output dolly. So it picks, say, the first slot in the output. What kind of engine cover do I need? And then consults where can I find that? And then it goes and tries to pick it up from there. And if it can find it, it proceeds. It has that kind of basic description, and then it has a description of the kind of whole architecture of the task that we've provided, and then it puts those two together to do the sequencing.
Atlas has cameras, mostly in the head, and with those cameras, it perceives the fixtures or containers that it has to interact with, not just the one in particular where it has to extract an object or insert an object, but all containers around it so that it can map its footsteps to avoid collisions, for example. And then at the same time, it also sees objects. It has an idea of the object that it's going to manipulate, and with that mental model, it sort of uses directly RGB cameras to estimate the pose of the object and then equally track it over time.
Sometimes it knows that it's successfully put in place. So it knows that it's failed if it starts pushing and senses that it's not being able to move the cover the way it wants to, and then it'll back up and try again. It'll get the cover in and then let go, and at that point it thinks that it has successfully put it in place. It'll go ahead and give it a little extra push just to make sure it's fully seated.
The 360 rotations are funny. They're there,
but I can't look to see whether or not it's actually in the slot.
Which is efficiency, right? So Atlas can turn around faster, can turn its head. It wants to look something behind its head, and it can just turn the head. Atlas is faster at moving back and forth because it has that 360 motion.
Yeah.
Boston Dynamics has a very long history in robotics, and in particular legged robots. And in bipeds alone, we've been working on them for probably over 15 years. But we really designed it to be a very high performance machine. And so we're interested in, again, being able to explore the very frontier of what's physically possible in humanoids. And everything, all the infrastructure that we've built around doing that, I think is a real accelerant that shows itself through the performance of Atlas already.
I'm biased. For me, it's the pinnacle of humanoids today. It's capable of all of the agility that HD Atlas had, but probably even more than HD Atlas.
Yep. Atlas is fucking huge. That's what she said. Crazy stuff. So this is actually something where it's showing actual, like, a meaningful use case for it, right? Where we just looked at the one where it's actually showing basically a response to the Chinese AI video, or excuse me, humanoid video, which is where they showed China, a robot that actually learned to breakdance, or just learned to dance moves, basically for copying someone. Whether or not, so this is mocap, they at least said, which is where it basically copies the movements of someone else, and it's just basically doing them, but it's not necessarily the same thing as learning through AI. Mocap being used in the gaming industry, right? For visual movements, for facial features, for instance, so you can actually see how people, interact, make expressions more human. But it doesn't always work that way, and sometimes it can look really weird. But they released this right after the engine, what's it called, X engine or whatever it is. The Chinese AI company did this. There's, like I said, there's a lot of stuff going on here, guys. There's a lot of stuff we're covering right now. We haven't even gotten to the fucking aliens built the pyramids bit. So, just as a segue of the JFK files, the Epstein files, psionics being developed and actually possibly really actually being a real thing, which is ridiculous, and the information coming out on that, and real-life robots in your household, we now have the aliens built the pyramids bit, which is like, whatever, what's going on here? I have no idea. This makes almost no sense, right? Yeah. So now we have, see if I can find it. This is fucking a segue of a segue of a segue of a segue, guys. Also, people are saying the NASA launch splashdown was fake. Is also ridiculous. Let's see. A lot of people aren't actually covering. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. So, we have this, which is, first off, to kind of establish credibility here. This was actually a press event in Egypt, by the way. This is setting things up, so understand that. This actually was a press event in English that people attended, so in real life. Which is this, where these three guys, they released a white paper in 22 on basically imaging the pyramids with LiDAR, sonographic LiDAR, I think they said. And it's already, there's people that are referencing the 22 paper that these three scientists basically wrote. These three guys, they wrote a paper on it. The new stuff is from the 16th, which is this press event, which is right here, the 16th, and it already happened. And the press event, which is this.
Good evening and welcome to the Expedition channel, the
This
official
is
channel of
an introduction for the press event that they're going to host on the 16th,
the
right?
Khafre project. This is an announcement in my role as head of communications for the research project. I will now read the official press release of the Khafre project, which has just been sent to the Italian and international press. Here it is, regarding the Giza Plateau. A vast underground city has been discovered beneath the pyramids. It is the mythical Amenti. This discovery was made
Not sure
possible
about that.
thanks to SAR satellite data and archaeological research. As part of the Khafre research project, Dr. Armando Mai, Professor Filippo Biondi, and Professor Corrado Malanga have invited
people we just
both
looked at.
Italian and international press to a special conference.
Weird, because we heard
held
almost
both in
nothing on
person
this.
and online,
This is
to reveal
one of the biggest botched launches I've ever seen for a major press event, guys. Because it happened in real life. It literally just happened in real life. However, there wasn't actually... by the way, sorry about the green screen, guys. There wasn't actually an online presence at all. This is the online presence, which is barely registering on the radar. And it's basically where people are getting all their information from.
results of an innovative and groundbreaking study that has redefined the boundaries of satellite data analysis and archaeological exploration.
Basically, they improved on LiDAR
During
and
the press
sonographic
conference,
radar.
for the first time ever, structures believed to correspond to the legendary halls of Amenti will be revealed. Using synthetic aperture radar (SAR) technology, combined with the new Doppler tomography methodology, the research team has made a series of unprecedented discoveries, located precisely beneath the Giza Plateau. This technological innovation involves converting photonic radar information into phononic signals.
They're talking about the
vibrational
technology of it.
data within the acoustic band. Thus
So basically, they
enabling
use
the
sound
exploration of deeply
to,
buried
much like
structures
sonar,
beneath
or,
the Earth's surface.
what's a better word of wording that? They use on humans. Not sonar. Ultrasound. There we go. Ultrasound.
The main discoveries to be presented include the identification
Wait for
of
it, guys.
structures, rooms, and corridors within the Pyramid of Khafre.
It's the
discovery
second
of
biggest
an
pyramid in
extensive
Egypt.
network of vertical shafts, estimated to extend at least 1 kilometer deep beneath each Great Pyramid, which appear to serve as access points to this underground system.
That is 2/3 of a football field below the pyramids. But
The
it
existence
gets
of vast
more ridiculous.
chambers beneath the Earth's surface, comparable in size to the pyramids themselves. A remarkably strong correlation between the layout and characteristics of these underground chambers and the legendary halls of Amenti, as described in ancient myths, including those associated with the god Thoth. This discovery opens new frontiers
Thoth,
in
not
both
Thor.
archaeology and SAR satellite remote sensing technology, combining advanced data processing.
When I first heard about this, guys, we talked about this a year ago when we were discussing. Basically, they discovered underground. I don't even know if they excavated yet. There's an underground building or square. Basically, I think it's next to the Sphinx or something. It's basically in an open area where they just thought there was nothing there. There's actually a giant underground, possibly building, and which even has a further complex going further down. They discovered it with ground penetrating radar. That was like a year, 2 years ago. And this just got even more. This got even weirder, guys. And putting aside the fact that weirdly enough, there's like pyramids are all around the world, right, in different forms and variations. Old ancient civilizations like the pyramids. Why? It's a really good question. How they all just popped out everywhere, except when they can't literally go. They can't go around the world and talk to each other, right, where we can now. They're all building pyramids. But most places actually haven't taken the time to use non-invasive, so these basically they aren't tearing down the buildings, non-invasive methods to archive or otherwise scan the area. You'd think they would, but they haven't. A lot of governments just don't care. In third world countries, maybe they don't have the means to it. Maybe they don't have people that necessarily know what they're doing, or like they just don't care. Or there's other things they worry about, or maybe they just want a comfy life, or like it's not even on their proverbial radar, and which is really weird. These things have been there for thousands of years, right? The pyramids have been in Egypt for a long time, but it hasn't even really been a main topic of interest for Egypt till it turned into tourism. And then after that point, they kind of, like the archaeology kind of followed the tourism, which is kind of weird, as it does, because capitalism makes things go around, right? So money makes things go around, right?
With historical narratives to unveil the past of humanity. The press conference will be held on March 15th, 2025.
Already happened.
From 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. In case of connection issues, the team will be available to provide assistance until 5 p.m. The spoken languages will be both Italian and English.
They're talking about the press event, which happened already.
Scheduled speakers: Professor Corrado Malanga, researcher and head of the research project. Dr. Armando Mai, Egyptology expert.
These are the guys that wrote the 22 paper?
Professor Filippo Biondi, SAR technology specialist. Nicole Sicolo, head of communications for the research project. For press inquiries, please contact us at ufficiostampa at
I haven't done that. I don't know if anyone does. I don't even know if they respond to it. They have to be being bombarded by so much shit right now, because this is literally everywhere over Twitter right now.
Exclusively for accredited press members. Full technical reports, high-resolution images, and supporting data will be provided under embargo before the press conference.
But the press conference already happened, and those haven't actually popped up online. Or there's so much noise right now with this just going on everywhere. You haven't even seen the visuals yet, guys. This is just all setting up for what basically are the visuals.
Please inform us in advance if you plan to attend the event in person or online, and also regarding any technical issues related to the connection.
Okay, so that's basically just the announcement, and then they had a second announcement, which is this guy.
Press release. Giza. Discovery of an underground city, the legendary Amenti. Good evening and welcome to Expedition, the official channel of the Khafre project. This is announcement number 2, and as the head of communications for the research project,
by the way,
I will
this is
now
all
read
extremely
you
difficult
the
to find
official
online.
press release of the Khafre project, which has just been distributed to both Italian and international media. Here it is. Ladies and gentlemen, it is with great enthusiasm that we officially announce today our research team has succeeded in identifying a vast underground city beneath the Giza Plateau, which corresponds to the legendary Amenti. This city is mentioned in ancient texts as a place linked to the universal knowledge of humankind and its ultimate spiritual transformation.
Tinfoil hat moment, guys.
This extraordinary achievement has been made possible through the processing of SAR data obtained from Capella space satellites.
Technology is always important.
Technological approach to archaeology.
It isn't just made up shit.
The uniqueness of this discovery lies not only in its immense historical and archaeological significance, but also in the innovative method employed. Thanks to ultra-high azimuth resolution radar imaging achieved through specialized spotlight acquisitions with long Doppler integration, we have been able to extract precise acoustic information. In particular, the satellite data has been processed using a groundbreaking technique, Doppler tomography, developed by Professor Filippo Biondi, an internationally renowned expert in synthetic aperture radar, interferometry, and multichromatic tomographic analysis. This patented methodology enables the creation of three-dimensional reconstructions of underground structures, allowing the identification of corridors, chambers, and tunnels extending several kilometers beneath the surface. These new archaeological findings could redefine our understanding of the sacred topography of ancient Egypt, providing spatial coordinates for previously unknown and unexplored subterranean structures.
Yeah, everything that's hidden, which is weird. No one decided just like, let's just try digging everywhere.
Only been possible thanks to the contributions of a multidisciplinary team of internationally renowned experts. Dr. Nicole Ciccolo, a forensic handwriting expert with over 25 years of experience in civil and criminal investigations. She has worked with numerous Italian prosecutors and authored significant forensic analyses. Her expertise in deciphering ancient manuscripts has been crucial in interpreting certain symbols identified at the site. Professor Filippo Biondi, a specialist in radar technology and satellite imaging, with experience at the University of Strathclyde, UK, the Italian Space Agency, and the National Research Council. He is currently one of the world's leading experts in the development of SAR processing algorithms, with applications in space archaeology. Dr. Armando May, a historian and Egyptologist specializing in the study of pre-dynastic civilizations. He has conducted archaeological field research in Egypt and collaborated with numerous international academic institutions. His theories on the correlation between underground structures and the myth of Zep Tepi have guided the team's investigations. Professor Corrado Malanga,
Basically,
head of the research
if there's an idea
project,
that there might be
a
something
chemist
buried
and
there, you
former
just hit it with
researcher at
the
University
LiDAR,
of Pisa, with
the
a
SAR
long-standing career in
tomography.
the study of consciousness and the phenomena related to perception of
Why not?
reality.
Why
His
not, guys?
expertise has enabled the development of new interpretative models for analyzing the discovered structures. The support of Capella Space, a new frontier for archaeology. This demonstrates how the integration of space technology and historical research can overcome the limitations of traditional archaeological investigations, allowing us to map the subsurface of Giza without invasive excavations. Capella Space's SAR satellites, capable of producing radar images with centimeter-level resolution, have made it possible to generate highly precise acoustic images of Giza's underground, finally revealing to humanity the existence of the halls of Amenti. Project presentation events. To provide an in-depth look at this extraordinary discovery, the Khafre Research Project SR Technology has organized 2 exclusive conferences, both to be held at the Hotel Castello Artemide Congressi, Viale Terme 1010/B, 40024 Castel San Pietro Terme BO, Italy. March 15th, 2025. Seats still available. A press conference for accredited journalists only, which will be held both in person and remotely. All relevant documentation for journalists can be found via the link in the description of this video. March 16th, 2025. Event sold out. The official technical conference, featuring the research team, where the findings and Doppler tomography imaging will be presented for the first time. The overwhelming interest from the public has led to a sold-out event within days. The future of the project. In the coming months, the Khafre Research Project SAR Technology will continue working persistently on new tomographic analyses and 3-dimensional models of the underground structures, aiming to finally produce a complete and precise map of what lies beneath the Giza Plateau. The research is set to continue throughout 2025, with all updates shared through official documentation and scientific publications, available upon request to scholars and enthusiasts via a dedicated repository. This discovery marks a groundbreaking step in our understanding of ancient Egypt and its deep infrastructure.
Why does this all matter, guys? Why are we watching this Italian woman
It
speak?
could lead to unprecedented revelations about the civilization that built the entire architectural complex, including the pyramids, which now appear to be just the tip of the iceberg of a colossal and hidden project.
Oh! So why does this matter? Back to segue. Let's segue off here, guys. Remember earlier how we're talking about the possibility, like turning off, basically causing lesions in your brain. So this is what we were talking about earlier with the telepathy tapes, and where the researchers in Canada basically figured out that they could create a lesion in your brain and make you become more psychically aware. The interesting thing about this is, as it's stated here, I wanted to talk more about this, and the interesting thing here, guys, is that's not it. I want the exact quote. Here it is. This I wanted to talk about, but I forgot. There's a lot of shit going on, guys, in the last couple weeks here. And this is actually from a year ago, but also popped up recently.
Scientists noted that if these powers really existed, evolution should have favored them and made them dominant human traits.
So if you have the ability to psionically or psychically influence others, to change an outcome, to predict the future, to possibly move things with your mind, why would Darwinism have not favored the outcome here? I completely agree with the scientists here, right? It makes it less likely to happen, because why would you have developed in a way that would actually stop it from happening, right? What would actually happen throughout time that would stop us from a Darwinism standpoint, because of survival of the fittest, right? More or less, or basically anything that gives you an advantage. Why would that genetically be altered in us to the point at which we no longer, or basically these capabilities are dormant in our mind, right? I wanted to point this out because this is really, really, this is interesting with everything that's going on right now. And where I was talking about earlier how NHIs or aliens possibly could have seeded ideas and stuff that happens on our planet. The only explanation for something like this, why possibly, cognitively speak, like why our brains would actually lose a dominant feature, is if it was intentionally genetically altered in us. That's kind of the way it goes. Just tinfoil hat moment here, guys. It actually seems like in order for this to actually take part, in order for this to have happened, it would have had to have, like, something would have had to have altered our brains in a way that was outside of evolution, in a way that wasn't actually, either we weren't ready for it or they wanted us to develop in a different way. There's something that is in our mind, because we were talking about this earlier. This is a white paper, by the way, which we also looked at. This is actually a scientific study. This isn't made up bullshit on conspiracytheories.com. This is actually something where they're actually scientifically testing this. They found out that they actually, if they basically hurt or kind of disable part of your brain, it actually becomes, another part of your brain becomes more active. And you actually, like, it's like a filter that turns off that stops you from using, or stops people from using, basically latent psychic powers. And the only way that possibly we wouldn't be able to use them is if something intentionally is trying to stop us or stopped us from using them in the past. This is the really crazy shit, guys, about this whole area. Like, I just remember this when we were talking about the Giza Plateau thing, because this all comes down to, like, the whole idea that maybe NHIs are partially adjusting basically our flow. I don't know exactly why you'd want to stop us from becoming psychic early, but they may have. And it could be because we become like some sort of hive mind mentality without developing self awareness or self-governing, like autonomy. You don't discover autonomy if you're tuned into the hive mind constantly. You don't develop a sense of self unless you're actually able to think outside of basically a group consciousness, right? Like, imagine social media being the catalyst for what is driving this right now, right? Where you basically just kind of tune into a hive mind, you tune into people, and the upvote system basically giving credence or value or weight to whatever's, like happening, right? And instead of Facebook or Twitter or whatever, where you see the upvotes and downvotes, Reddit, you instead have a group consciousness. It makes it very difficult to develop a sense of self, even without like putting aside psionics and just talking about social media. It makes it very difficult for people to develop a sense of self if they're always on social media, basically looking for validation, verification, or otherwise just telling them what to do and then having other people upvote them for it, right? It makes it very difficult. So it's entirely possible that something want us to develop a sense of self that was beyond just being part of a hive mind, which is very curious. But what they discovered here was basically the disabling part of our brain that is genetically not engineered, but it developed to filter out. Like, it doesn't even make sense from an evolution standpoint. Basically stopped us from using psychic powers if they're able to basically turn this off using RTMS, which we talked about here. Turn it off. It basically does the opposite. It actually, instead of it's not. Normally, you think about something that you developing a muscle, you have to work it out, right? But it's actually the opposite in this case. Like, it's like a muscle developed to stop us from doing something, but that doesn't make sense. It's not the way evolution works at all, right? Very, very fucking weird. Very, very weird. I wanted to talk about this before because this is basically kind of weeds into maybe we've been seeded or something's been, tampered with in terms of our evolution in order to change how we function. Why? Good question. Maybe Little Green Men know, but as it turns out, we don't currently know. But this is evolutionary. I agree with these scientists here, which is it doesn't make sense, right?
Scientists noted that if these powers really existed, evolution should have favored them and made them dominant human traits.
Yeah, because it is a dominant trait, being able to read the future, communicate with the hive mind, read the future, or otherwise, use telepathy, move objects, telekinesis. It's actually a really big deal. That's a pretty big deal. That's a pretty big evolutionary gap. And for some strange reason, part of our brain developed to stop us from doing that, which is, we got some really weird shit going on here, guys. Anyways, this was a segue from earlier, and I forgot about this. I really wanted to come back to this, and I never did up until we started talking about this, which is the Giza Plateau underneath the Khafre, under the Khafre Pyramid. And why did what we're watching here, so now we're pulling back to this, guys. Why did I watch these two videos about this Italian woman talking about this press conference? To show that this is actually real in the first place, that it actually happened, that this isn't just made up, aliens built the pyramid shit you see on the History Channel. So these are actually scientists. This was an actual press event in real life. They're going to have more, including technical conferences. Allegedly, this is on the 23rd. And then this is basically, I don't know exactly where they're sourcing this from. Like, there's some people that actually got the white paper. I didn't see it so far on Twitter, but they got the white paper and they actually, here.
To a recent press release, the Khafre Pyramid, is the tip of a very large iceberg. So there was a big press release.
Once again, I'm going to point out that this isn't History Channel, the aliens built the pyramids. These are three scientists in real life that actually use science, so SRE tomography, I think they talked about, and a couple different methods to basically approximate models, which she's going to talk about here.
Italy, made by Corrado.
This, by the way, is the best synopsis as far as all the information goes.
So this is a model of what they found, and you can see a structure within the Khafre Pyramid.
Basically, we kind of knew about already.
The amazing thing is you can see these structures that go down deep into the earth. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the information that's been released so far. Apparently there's going to be a lot more released fairly soon, but we'll just look at what we know so far. And I got this from Trevor Grassi's Facebook page. So thank you, Trevor. Much appreciated for keeping everybody up to date. So here's what we know so far. And we're getting this information from the abstract that was released on the 16th of March. Quote, this abstract summarizes the key points of our research, which aimed to clarify the possible hidden structures inside the second pyramid of the Giza Plateau, known as the Khafre pyramid. This research was conducted using non-invasive techniques based on publicly available synthetic aperture radar, i.e. SAR, data, provided as open source by Capella Space and Umbra, and there's some websites associated with that. It then goes on to describe the first step that was taken before this, which was the project to scan the Khufu pyramid and a few of the results.
That's the paper from 22, which we talked about earlier.
In fact, I did an episode on this when the information came out, and I've since
22.
updated it. So you'll see on my channel there's a fairly recent version of that as well. So let's just keep looking at what the new stuff is. The tomographical images obtained from the satellite data processing immediately highlighted the presence of 5 structures.
Normally,
located
I
at
believe
the center of the
they originally thought that there was one structure, and now they found 5. Basically, one of these is the burial chamber that the king's under.
Above Belzoni's chamber, which contained a presumed sarcophagus, mistakenly believed to be the pharaoh's tomb. The abstract paper then goes on to say that
This is the
these
raw data.
structures share the same shape as the so-called Z structure found inside the pyramid of Khufu, above the ceiling of the so-called pharaoh's or king's chamber. The 5 Zs in the Khafre pyramid appear to be connected by geometric pathways, and alongside these structures, additional secondary structures are visible from various satellite angles, as shown in some of the tomographical images. The analysis of this data, obtained using entirely non-invasive techniques, are briefly summarized. These findings allowed us to construct a 3D model of the entire complex. The examination of dozens of tomographical images obtained from different angles using Capella Space and Umbra radars enabled a 3D reconstruction of most of the objects inside the pyramid of Khafre. Below, we present some images from our 3D analysis. The analysis of the structures above Belzoni's chamber are intensely coloured spots which can be observed appearing in all tomographic images taken from different angles corresponding to the internal artificial structures. On the next page, it says that improvements of the signal-to-noise ratio revealing the internal structure of the 5 Zs, consisting of 5 horizontal levels and a sloping roof. So this is the raw pictures of the data that they used to create their model. And this is the model. So it
One of
reads the
the raw pictures that they
tomography with
used.
another cross-sectional line showing the presence of vertical structures. And if you think that was pretty mind-blowing, it then goes on to say, as observed in the 3D model below the ground level, so ground 0 of the main structure, vertically aligned cylindrical structures extend for hundreds of meters beneath the Giza Plateau. Notably, 8 of these structures, arranged in 2 parallel rows from north to south, descend to a depth of 648 meters, merging into 2 large cubic structures
Miles
measuring
below the
18
pyramids,
meters
guys.
per
Mile
side.
below the pyramid?
These features are
It's a long ways
illustrated
down for
in
fucking
the
ancient
topographical
Egyptians.
images and models presented. The paper then adds to that with some even more interesting detail, which is that the 8 cylindrical structures that have been identified in the tomographical image appear as vertical wells which are hollow inside and surrounded by descending spiral pathways. It then goes on to describe the third step, which is a lot of the analysis they've done based on all this data that they've collected. So they say the next phase involved analysing the tomographic data to determine the full extent of the underground structures beneath the Giza Plateau. The tomographic images clearly reveal that the structures exist beneath the plateau, extending below the pyramids of Khafre, Khufu, and Menkaure, for approximately 2 kilometers below ground. So mind-blowing as all that is, there's still more to come, and this is just a little bit of the information that they have shared with us so far.
What she didn't touch on is it went a mile below the surface. Is these boxes? They go down into 80-meter cubes below the surface. Yeah, and what's interesting about this, putting aside the fact we're authenticity, which is going to be judged in the next coming basically weeks, is if this exists, which it very much looks like it is, because as we mentioned earlier, we're covering the differences between covering the setting the tone by looking through basically the presentation, what they're announcing, the credentials of the people that were presenting, and how they did it. And the whole reason we went through that is to establish basically credibility for what basically is being talked about here, which is there's basically a structure that goes down a mile below the pyramids, multiple hollow cylinders, which, by the way, we have difficult making today, mile below the pyramid, constructed by ancient Egyptians, is a little tough to believe. They came up with all sorts of headcanon, guys. They came up with all different sorts of ways to justify, basically ancient Egyptians building the pyramids in the first place, right? And a little bit, questionable, but we have nothing else to go off of, right? How the fuck they can actually make this, they can't. This comes down to, this is world-changing, guys, mainly because you can't have, like, an ancient civilization would be next to impossible to ever have been able to make this. Like we'd have to have some sort of earth-changing event that happened, and who made this is a really, really good question, because it's clearly not derpy like ancient Egyptians. Like, most people were derpy, right? It's just, drinking leaded water. It doesn't really happen that way. It's like, the weird thing about this is bigger. Like, all this shit happening at the same time is the weirdest fucking shit. We have the JFK files, we have the fucking Epstein files, we have the telepathy tapes and telepathy in general, which we just covered earlier. And then you have the weird hive mind shit going on with Teslas that are, people are setting fire to. All really weird stuff. And then you have UAPs and UAP disclosure on top of that, which is also happening, and we cover relatively frequently. All this stuff is like coming to a head, and it's all kind of, it feels like this is intentionally happening very much at the same time. And why does this matter? Because why is this, like, out of all the events, why does this matter the most? Putting aside UAPs, which is another something that could be mind-blowing. Why does this matter a lot? Because there's no way ancient Egyptians could have made this. This is a mile below the surface, like the entire complex, and they didn't find the bottom. The method they were using for basically penetrating the ground only goes so far, and basically they don't know what's below here. They just know that this turns into this, and that's all they've been able to image. But this is so far below the ground, there's no way, and these are hollow too, so they didn't even cave in. These are hollow and still hollow, which means there is, like, it could be empty. It's entirely possible that it's empty, but whatever they're built to house is actually just as, like, even if they're empty, the whole idea that they were built in the first place to house something, or that something was there, is extremely incredible. Even if they're completely empty, there's nothing there. It's the fact that they haven't caved in, and ancient Egyptians built them, which is next to impossible, which means something else is going on here. And this is, like, all over, absolutely all over, basically. Like, it's going to hit mainstream news. If you haven't heard of this yet, it's going to hit mainstream news probably later today. This popped out yesterday, and this is from the press event on the 16th. I first heard of this yesterday morning, I think, or 2 days ago, basically, at late night / yesterday morning. Not this morning, yesterday morning. And mainstream news is probably going to pick up. I've already seen, like, mainstream outlets like Joe Rogan and the usual political figures now starting to talk about this, because this is fucking huge. The implications of this are extraordinary. And the reasons, once again, the reason for that is because ancient Egyptians can't build this. This is the thing why this is such a big deal, is the fact that ancient Egyptians and Egypt, if I was them, I'd 100% start work on this fucking on immediately, because there's a lot of fucking questions going on here and zero answers, and Egypt's in control of all of it, which is pretty insane in and of itself. Like, if your country, guys, basically functions mainly on tourism and like agriculture, the idea that you're sitting on top of something that you're basically grandfathered in is insane, right? And not just that, people are literally would like throw money to visit stuff like this. They love the shit. Like, I love stuff like this, right? People just love the idea of, even without just knowing what the pyramids are and just visiting the pyramids, it's things people do all the time because it's tourism, right? But like stuff like this just goes way beyond that, because this might not even just be tourism. This might not be a tourism thing. This might be something completely fucking different, like insanely different. The very fact that these could even be there is mind-blowing. This is absolutely fucking mind-blowing. And what's really going to matter is what happens in the next couple weeks here, guys, where they figure out what exactly is going on here. But as it stands right now, this is probably, I don't even know how to word this. It's always, everyone likes the idea of the pyramids, right? As something ancient, kind of alluring, mystery involved with it, and never really is completely understood. And the idea of mystery being there, everyone loves that shit. But it's mainly, like, people basically thought that they figured everything out, right? We've already figured everything out. But it actually kind of seems like that might not be the case, and I don't even think it's possible to fake this, right? So it's not even like Egypt is like, well, let's make this cooler by making an attraction underneath the ancient pyramids, right? Let's take that angle, that this is a skamaz, that's a debate. The ability for you to build something like this underneath the pyramids, by the way, is also pretty extraordinary, and obviously there'd be signs of modern development. It's not something that could really fake without a lot of effort, and people would probably be able to figure it out. There's almost no way that they could have faked this. So what exactly these things are is a really, really good question, guys. It's not really something where this is bigger than basically everything that's happening in the U.S. right now, and there's a lot happening in the fucking U.S. right now. And world-changing implications here, because it completely redefines ancient civilizations, which we thought we basically understood, and that was pretty much all there was to them, right? And even if, like, I don't even know, like, you couldn't even just, like, there's almost no way that you could postulate that the ancient Egyptians even built this in the first place. Like, with the pyramids, they kind of, they made up their own little kind of origin story of pulleys and levers and, putting things on rolling boards, right? Because it makes it easier to move blocks, and more recently they talked about using hydraulics to move blocks. But there's nothing really that describes either why these would be here, or what they even do in the first place, or how they even made them. Even like I said, even if they're empty, how they even made these in the first place would be insane. It's not something you can even postulate. Who the fuck? We can barely make these today. Like, these are huge, by the way. This isn't like small little corridors. These are fucking gigantic. The bottom, those cubes are allegedly 80 by 80 meters. So they're basically 2/3 of a football field. If you want American terms, they're 2/3 of a football field in basically a cube. That's 2/3 the size of a football field underground, a mile underground. That was made by ancient Egyptians. Like, absolutely get out of here. This is like the one thing I really want to talk about, and there isn't really much more to add to it because we don't have anything more besides what this team is doing, which they haven't. They're going to have a couple tech conferences and press releases, which they talked about. But as far as like what is here, it's just literally, just absolutely insane. Oh yeah, well, cool. I appreciate that. Just absolutely insane. I don't even know what. I don't even know what the fuck is. Like, how do you even process this? The first thing I had when I first heard this was doubt. When I first started processing this information, the first thing I had was I doubt this is real, right? And then I started digging for sources through basically crowdsourcing, or basically using people online, because a lot of people are interested in this. We found the original event, which is where I showed you guys at the beginning. We found the original channel for it, which is it's actually a company, I guess. They aren't doing a very good job, but it's an actual company. And then you have the actual press release, which this is part of it, right? And she found it off of a Facebook page, she said. Everyone right now is, by the way, they're just all parodying the same information. There's very little source information, which is usually one of the problems when there's a lot of noise or just hype, but there's not a whole lot of source to go off of. Her other videos have like 100 views on them, and then she has one with 40,000. I've linked this video, by the way, a couple different times on Twitter. There's a lot of theories of what it is. Some people suggested that... I don't really cover that, but like some people suggested the pyramids were used for generating electricity. Some people said there's a fucking Death Star weapon. There's all different sorts. Aliens built the pyramids, mysteries. All different sorts of mysteries on this.
You are literally not going to believe what they've just found underneath the Khafre, the middle pyramid in Giza. I can't believe it myself, but I'm going to show you. There was a press release yesterday in Italy from Filippo Biondi and
This is
Corrado
old paper, by the way. She doesn't
Malanga.
actually... She didn't say this, but this is the 22 paper, I believe.
They have written a paper which has got all the results of their synthetic aperture radar Doppler tomography, which is a SAR radar scan. So basically using sound.
I'm actually... Dude, they're... I don't know, Mark, if you just if you just tuned in, we covered a lot of stuff, and there's a lot of really weird shit going on right now. Just to cover things, we got the JFK files, we got the Epstein files, we have UAPs, we have psionics, not just bullshit psychics, reading your mind, sitting there going, I'm like one of those things. We have the real possibility of psionics in addition to actual scientific study being done on psionics. The possibility that psionics are actually part of our brain and they've been somehow turned off, which is genetic engineering weird shit. UAPs, we have the Mars, and then we got the hive mind shit with... This is like, putting aside the real politics stuff, which is the president doing all sorts of dumb shit, and then you got the fucking left setting shit on fire. And now we have this.
Sound waves, I believe. They have scanned deep inside the middle pyramid,
like ultrasound,
and all underneath the structure. And then from the results, they are able to create like 3D models of what they think the sound waves are showing.
2025, guys, is like... It's weird if you get like one thing in a year. 2025 has had a lot of really, really weird shit all happening at the same time. And it really feels like there's something else going on here right now.
And I can't talk. I'm so excited. So underneath the pyramid,
He's going over
found
some of the stuff looks new, by the way.
Huge cylindrical structures
that
are aligned perfectly in twos.
From the white paper.
So there's 4 pairs of them, and they go deep into the earth. So this is the 3D recreation of what the SAR scan shows. So you can see these 8 cylindrical pillars that go deep down, and then...
If this wasn't real research, I would immediately write all this off as bullshit, to be perfectly honest. Because, once again, I like to believe. I want to believe in aliens. I hope first contact happens in my lifetime. But I also need to see the evidence, right? This is evidence. This is turning into evidence. Unless it's just made up shit, this might be a big debate, but I don't think there's 3 guys literally just going, haha, we got you good, Facebook. Haha, we got you good. yeah, I don't think 3 people are putting their scientific careers on the line to make up a random bullshit just to make the internet basically make some clicks for them. So
Each pillar is surrounded by like a circular top.
I talked about this earlier. You know, there's like the weirdest thing is, so people are motivated by money. In third world countries, it's not necessarily about science as much as it's about where money goes, especially if there's corruption. So in order for people to actually experience something, not only do they have to have the means, so like knowing that there is technology that's available, they also have to have the motivation to do so, so really motivated scientists that really want to know something. They have to be able to fund it, and then of course they also have to get permission. If you were Egypt, and as I mentioned before, if you're Egypt and you're just literally sitting, like Egypt doesn't really make much of anything. They have like agriculture, and then they have tourism based around their pyramids. If one of your major resources of your country is tourism, you definitely want to do this shit, right? And I guess it took them a while to realize, maybe we can do more. It is like I mentioned before, maybe we can do more with the pyramids, you know, outside of tourism, right? It's actually kind of weird how it works, because it's actually like the tourism happened and then the archaeology happened. You know, like normally it's like, oh, look, they just found this stuff and they explored it, right? One of those things. But no, it's mainly, it follows the money trail. So the tourism happened, which is one of the reasons I think we should go to the moon, by the way, is because starting industry, it draws reason. It draws a purpose. So we go to the moon, we can set up logistics before Mars. We can set up logistics and industry. So in the case of the moon, you have tourism. Once again, you have tourism. And then you also have helium mining, helium-3, which is extremely rare on Earth and is something that we actually need. So you could actually start up not only mining industry, but you could also send up a tourism. And you could definitely believe that there's fucking people that would love to go to the fucking moon, love to go to the goddamn moon, and literally go to their moon hotel. People love that shit, especially rich people. They absolutely love that shit. But anyways, in the case of Egypt, they have basically, essentially 2 resources. They have agriculture, more or less, and they have tourism. And they just recently have kind of like, you know, they got to the point where they're relatively stable, because third world countries are kind of that way. They're relatively stable, and they're like, hey, maybe we can actually make more out of our pyramids. So they let people do stuff like this, even though they should have a long time ago, like this, and they funded it, right? So they allowed people to actually, you know, non-invasive, which means they don't need to dig, and there's almost no reason to object to this anymore. And they actually were able to image this, right? So it actually makes sense, and we talked about this before. So the top, they imaged in 22, but they didn't have the means to image the bottom. They talked about basically having to advance these cylinders. They basically created a new algorithm, and it basically improved the technology so they could go further underground. A lot of people on social media right now are quoting Grok and saying how the technology can't actually do this. It's because, as with everything, guys, when something's bleeding edge or new science or new things that are coming out, it's the beginning. And Grok and AI is based off of consensus. It's a crowd consensus, right? It's what all the sources say put together. All the sources put together right now are based off of old data. That's the way it works. This is with people. People are based off old data. You got to update your algorithm, right? But this is, the new part is this shit. And even the top part, they were able to image even better, which is now there's 5 structures. The first one, the center one, they knew about before. I've seen that before, even like a decade ago. And people thought it was just a building, like the little buildings are actually there as a way of alleviating stress in the pyramid. But now there's 5 of them. And the first one, the center one, was supposedly just below, and it's had spiritual purpose too. It was below or above the king's burial chamber, right? And now they're actually figuring out that there's 5 of them, which makes even less sense. It makes even less sense. And now, how the fuck do you explain these goddamn cylinders? I don't know. But anyways, like, kind of getting back to your question here, like, how do they, like, why would it never have been explored? There are pyramids all around the world. We talked about this earlier. There's pyramids all around the world. Almost none of them have had used ground-penetrating radar, despite it being available. The governments just don't care. The people don't care. And they follow kind of each other. And even if they get a little bit of tourism, they aren't like, yeah, well, maybe it doesn't matter that much. One of those things, right? As far as like ancient worlds go, Egypt is probably, you know, like with the pyramids, is probably one of the most exploited or industrialized ancient tourist attractions. So they're one of the first people to actually, you know, they'll probably do it. Another one being obviously Rome, right? Ancient Rome. But that's much more difficult to do because basically you had a civilization built on top of it. You can't really build on top of the pyramids. I wonder if there actually were at some point, like someone built a business on one and they literally got kicked out. I don't know. Either way. This, in terms of the ancient world, like if I had a fucking government and we had like pyramids, I'd 100% like, I'd scan the shit out of them, right? What do you have to lose? Just you like it obviously costs money, but in terms of a government budget, it's like nothing. So it's like the bare minimum you could do. And there's a lot of reasons you could actually come up with why it hasn't been done till now, putting aside the technology not being mature enough to do it. But just because you can do it and you think it's a good idea doesn't mean someone else somewhere that's like literally just trying to feed themselves thinks it's a good idea, right? So, but
or walkway or tube.
Yep.
Okay, and this is not all. This is the beginning of it.
They're basically pathways,
Not only that,
from what I understand. So
at
they
the
could be
very
walkways.
base of the pyramid, like ground
some
zero
people
of the
said these are like
pyramid in the
batteries.
center, they have found 5 of these kind of stacked chambers, which are identical, look like they're kind of identical in size and form as the king's chamber of the Khufu pyramid, the one.
It's funny, guys. It's funny because I talk about UAPs and NHIs, so NHIs being non-human intelligence or aliens. I talk about them relatively frequently, and I mentioned before, could have aliens built the ancient pyramids? Sure. Is there any way to prove it? Not fucking really. Is that different when there's fucking giant fucking cylinders going down a mile below the surface, going to chambers that we don't know what's in them? I get it'd be fucking weird, guys, if all of a sudden Egypt becomes one of the most technologically advanced places on Earth. I'm just gonna throw that out there, because they discover, well, probably not, considering part of what's going on right now with UAP disclosure is the fact that the government in the U.S. actually has a reverse engineering program for UAPs. So even if they have ancient technology in Egypt, like alien ancient technology, it might not even be that impactful compared to what we possibly have to. This is all once again, tinfoil hat. And maybe I should actually get an actual tinfoil hat at this point for segments like this. But it actually kind of, yeah, there's some, what the fuck do they have in giant fucking boxes a mile below the surface under the how did they build it in the first place? There's a lot of question marks here, guys. And the first step is authenticity, which I tried to cover already, which, we arguably did, right? Authenticity. And establishing authenticity, which these are actual scientists, and this actually is definitely something that happened, is then, obviously excavating or figuring out what's in them. But the very fact that there's hollow cylinders that never caved in is pretty insane.
Next door. So these are made with huge blocks of granite, red granite that was brought hundreds of miles away to the Giza plateau and stacked very specifically in this sort of horizontal sandwich.
They're there to alleviate stress, allegedly. Actually, postulated.
Convex, oh my gosh, what's the roof? The roof's on the wonk, there we are. A vaulted ceiling. I'm way too excited. So 5 of them. 5 of these chambers just chilling in the middle of the pyramid, and then 8 cylindrical, massive underground structures that go deep down. And what is under that?
They're huge.
I'll show you. So 4 of these cylindrical structures dropping deep down into the earth, they go into 2 square sort of chambers, 2 square
that's what she said.
Empty spaces, which are 80 meters by 80 meters wall to wall.
2/3 of a football
Each
field,
of these
cubes.
Square chamber walls is 80 meters identically all the way around. Perfect square chambers with 4 cylindrical shafts going into them, or pillars, whatever they are, cylindrical structures with winding, coiled, maybe a walkway. We're not exactly
Access
sure.
walkway.
This is just what is showing up from the scans. Oh, and I'm sorry, did I tell you how deep these cylindrical tubes go under the pyramid? 648 meters. 648 meters.
Basically a mile.
Under the main pyramid.
So, why is this important, guys? Because the term of scale, this isn't digging a well. These are much, much larger than fucking wells. In terms of size and scope, and then actually stopping them from caving in is insane. And then digging them in the first place.
And then you hit the 80-meter 2 chambers, and then this is a map of the whole of the Giza plateau. So in the center, wait, I'm going to move. This here is the chambers that are in the center pyramid. the cylindrical chambers going down to whatever's going on 648 meters down here, there is evidence that there are more structures that go on for 2 kilometers underneath the Giza.
So this is new. I haven't heard of this part. I just knew, like, I heard that there's more stuff down there that they weren't able to image.
Giza plateau, all interconnecting underneath all 3 pyramids.
What?
And apparently there's going to be more press releases. This is just the beginning.
fuck?
The team are going to do some more press.
Dude.
This is so good.
If I was the Prime Minister of Egypt right now, I'd literally fucking get a backhoe out. I don't know what the fuck's going on there, but, like, literally one of the first things, like, you can't look at this and go, huh. I mean, obviously you don't want to break up the pyramids, but I would 100% make a fucking access portal to whatever the fuck is down there, like, immediately. There's plenty of ways we can do it without, like, going underneath the pyramids. This isn't, like, putting aside, there's probably access points. The weird thing about this, guys, is there's probably actually access points in the pyramids. Like, how the fuck are there access points in the pyramids and they haven't figured that out yet? I don't fucking know. Really weird. This is obviously, you know, like, the conspiracy theory part of me loves this shit, but there's also, like, weirdly mysterious shit going on here. Like, how the fuck did this exist? They just never found it because no one digged a hole deep enough to figure this out. Like, that's a long ways down.
Exciting. One thing I will say is that the idea that the pyramid was just a tomb for a dead pharaoh, why would you need 648 meters of perfectly aligned north to south pillars that go into an antechamber that then connect to an underground network of stuff? It's a bit excessive, isn't it? Just for a tomb. I'm going to be following this.
Not just excessive, how would you make it? It's not just excessive, guys. It's how the fuck did they get to the point of actually making this? And as mentioned, the weird thing about, like, I like pointing out, guys, the juxtaposition of my channel and the shit that goes on Twitch. Like, no one's fucking covering this. We talk about the NHIs, we talk about the congressional UAP hearings, so not like tinfoil hat, aliens built the pyramid, which is maybe not even tinfoil hat anymore. Aliens built the pyramids. But it's weird how, like, everyone on Twitch, guys, like, are weirdly sterilized to only give you, like, if you're a geek, doesn't this really appeal to you? Because it fucking appeals to me. Like, I grew up on video games and sci-fi and fantasy. I love this shit, and obviously I know the difference between fantasy and reality. But when it starts crossing this border between reality and fantasy, how does this not make the little kid in you squeal? Like, you know, like, with glee, and it's not in a bad way. Squeal with glee. I don't know. I don't know how other streamers aren't fucking talking about this shit. I don't know how they haven't noticed. Obviously, it's newer, and as such, it's not really something that's been completely solidified. And, like, it's just now, like, it wasn't even on mainstream media, and it probably won't be till maybe later today or maybe tomorrow. It seems like mainstream media gets slower and slower, by the way. But it's definitely already crossed the border between the conspiracy theorists, which I follow, right? So people talking about NHIs, UAPs, conspiracy theories. It's crossed the threshold on Twitter between them and the politics guys, the politic fucks like Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan talks about conspiracy theory stuff too. But crossed the border there, and now the politic fucks are also talking about it. So, like, people that normally cover politics are talking about it. And the mainstream, has the mainstream media even picked it up yet? Let's see, Khafre Pyramid, Wells. Last week. Substack. X, so everything's on Twitter right now. Reddit, which is obviously very in touch with Twitter. There's no publications here. Facebook, all the social media has already picked this up already. One website. There's currently one website, which I've heard of Substack before. I've never visited Substack. There is currently one news website that has actually remotely reported on this. Let's try a different search. Underground structures. Khafre Pyramid underground structure. Look at this. This is, I love I like the dissemination of information, guys. I love kind of sociology and how basically stuff disseminates to the internet. You can literally tell that basically. So when Elon Musk, you hate him or you like him, and there's a lot of apparently people. Well, not a lot of people that hate him, but some people are getting pretty crazy right now. Twitter is 100% like kind of like where it's the focal point of news and dissemination of information right now. A lot of stuff starts there, and you can see how it radiates out from Twitter through basically other sources of information. So we have people on YouTube, which we've basically been watching them. People on YouTube. A lot of these are linking to Twitter threads. You have Reddit, which is very much in touch with Twitter. 19th was the first I heard about it. Actually, no, maybe I heard, when's the 19th? 19th was yesterday. 17th is the first I heard about it. Instagram. There is no... Oh, MSN. May 14th, this is the... We talked about this earlier. This is the little area that they didn't know where something is. This is old, by the way. Yeah, it's from 24. This is old data. They knew about this for a while. This is where they also use ground-penetrating radar, but also haven't excavated that, by the way. Guys, Egypt needs to get on that. It's on someone's to-do list. Yeah. Long Lost River, this isn't even it. This we know about. This is old news. There's one website. I said, so maybe mainstream media will pick up on this tonight or tomorrow. This is kind of weird. So once again, dissemination of information, social media, mainly Twitter first, and then Reddit, and then Facebook is somewhere in there too. Some people use Facebook is actually really, really, really popular in other parts of the world. It just isn't in the U.S. There is currently one website, and this is still after it started trending on Twitter, by the way, and it starts breaking down the barriers between you have the craziest conspiracy theorists, and then it starts crossing the threshold of basic confidence, and then you have people that talk about kind of things outside the normal, but they still hold back and stuff, right? Like Joe Rogan, even though he just says some really crazy shit, where they like verifying stuff, and then you have also like the politics guys that are like, we talk about politics normally, but maybe we'll talk about this right now. And you have the rest of the world guys, which literally doesn't actually have anything here. There's nothing here. There's absolutely nothing here. Yeah, and this is all old information now. Pretty crazy shit, guys, to be perfectly honest. So, yeah. There's something else that was new, by the way. This is new. I also I dislike short videos because you can't rewind them. It's even further down.
So I think it really
This is from archaeology Reddit or a Facebook page from the looks of it. Grace. Remember we talked about, guys, how why don't you use ground penetrating radar? And just see what's below something? Good question. Really good question. I'm not seeing anything else here. Either way, guys, I'm going to keep you guys up to date on this stuff. But what I really wanted to cover is legitimately this. Which is, it is real. It is something that actually happened. Also, we covered robots, too. Oh my god. Robots most definitely going to be in your house in the next 2 years. Absolutely crazy. You have the Chinese literally leaping ahead, guys. And then you have Boston Dynamics trying to one-up them. We might be, like, it's always kind of been like the sci-fi trope of just having a robot in your house, but we legitimately are probably going to have robots in our houses in 2 years. And pretty crazy shit. Not just Boston Dynamics. If they don't do it, like, the Chinese are going to do it for sure. It probably will be cheap and it'll break, but they'll 100% do it. And once the idea is out there, more people are going to do it too. Yeah. Crazy stuff, guys. It's going to be, the next couple weeks, you're going to be telling them, not only asserting and solidifying authenticity of the argument they made here, excuse me, their findings here, but also what they are. I mean, that's probably going to take months, but like I said, if I was like the prime minister or the president of Egypt, I don't know what they have over there, I'd 100% get out the backhoes and figure out a way of tunneling into that without basically destroying everything, right? As fast as humanly possible. Because that's a big deal. That is literally a big deal, guys. Funny. Like I said, it'd be funny if Egypt literally became one of the most technologically advanced countries on the planet. From alien technology that's buried under the pyramids. There is something. How you'd even fucking do that in the first place is insane. Absolutely insane. If it is just like ancient Egyptian stuff, and that's it, like still they managed to make it, which is incredible. Absolutely incredible. A lot of question marks here, guys. But yeah, I think we're going to call things here this morning, guys. I wanted this long podcast, but I wanted to cover all the bases here. I'm probably going to put this up as a video on YouTube. We covered a lot of content tonight. UAPs, NHIs, JFK, Epstein files, politics in the U.S., the pyramid cylinders now? What even is this? This is something. Telepathy and psionics in general. This is all, like, it feels like all this shit just happening right exactly. I mean, look, it's a pyramid again. It's all just, like, culminating exactly at the same time. A lot of really, really weird stuff. A lot of stuff happening. And that's putting aside the politics that are also still happening in the U.S., which there's also a lot of political movement going on right now. But that's I think that kind of, like, the politics in the U.S. pales compared to what's happening here. This is insane. Like there's so much else going on besides politics, guys. It is incredible if all you think is going on is politics in the U.S. or just in the world in general. There is, like, it's like, what do you even, if your life rotates so heavily around politics that you can't figure out all this other stuff's going on, I don't even know what to tell you. And normally we only have, like, maybe we'll cover something like this maybe once every 6 months, and there's a lot of stuff happening at exactly the same moment. Oh, and also you're gonna have robots in your house. Oh, also you're gonna have robots in your house. Yeah. I don't know if this muted my sound earlier, probably did. Oh, it's a movie. No, it's actually a robot. That looks so fake every time I watch that. Fake or cheap plastic, one of the two. Yeah. And then Boston Dynamics had to show theirs off, which is also pretty ridiculous. This is captured from a person that did this. What's the kids movie with the guy that fights with robots and it duplicates his movements? Yep. You're going to have... Well, maybe you won't be able to afford one. I might not be able to afford one. But there's 100% going to be robots in people's houses and not just like a gimmick on Case and Odd stream. So, yeah.